I'd like to call the committee of the whole to order. Let the record show it's 6 p.m. And tonight we have a presentation from Tolga Borowski on an update on the land bank. Tolga, please.
Thanks again for having me in. I don't know if we met last time.
No, I haven't met you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. If I could get your email, I'll get it from Cheryl. I can send you some material that I gave out last time about land bank.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I had a great meeting with Megan yesterday. And kind of where we left it, I wanted to touch upon some of the things that we talked about. But I think what we're going to do is kind of powwow a couple more times, maybe get some of Matt's input, and then come back, I think, in a couple weeks and give a presentation, like a PowerPoint, on some of the ideas we have. But some of the, kind of to sum up some of the things that Megan and I talked about, one of the things that we've been doing at the land bank as we're kind of getting up and running is we've been doing visits to some of the other 18 land banks in New York State and really researching what other models they're using and some of the things that they're doing. And some of the interesting things that we've discovered so far, and then I relayed to Megan, and we're working on kind of doing some reports on each one of the site visits that we do. But in Albany, for example, many of these land banks had a first year process and then a subsequent year process, which is kind of figuring out initially how do we get up and running, and then after that, how do we work with our counties and our cities and our participating members. But Albany had an interesting process where they're kind of at one end of the spectrum, where Albany now gets, the land bank gets about 600 properties a year as part of their, essentially they sign over the tax properties, foreclosed properties to the land bank. But what they do is they have a guarantee, they have a contract with the land bank that when they sell a property, they provide the county, the formula they currently use is either the full tax, back tax number, or a third of the assessed value. And so what that does is provides some guarantees for both entities. The land bank knows that they'll have projects to rehab and to deal with. They can take out those toxic properties that really need to be demolished out of the cycle. And they can provide the county with some guarantees that we're going to get a certain amount of revenue from this, and do it in a way that your marketing, they actually ended up hiring a realtor because they found that they were having so many people do sales that it was going to be more cost effective to have a realtor on staff. And so what they can do now is they have websites for the buildings, they do the product sheets, and they really market the properties. And some of the other ones, like Albany, use something similar to what the city of Amsterdam does, and the city of Rome, where they have a committee that comes together and they look at these proposal-based projects, where they vet the buyers, pre-vet them, so that if you're in that process, you've already shown that you're not tax delinquent on any other properties, you've gone through a process that you have the resources to rehab a building if you're committed to it, and so that they're in that process, and then they have easements or covenants that go with the deeds that essentially say you're going to pay for the building now, whatever your bid is. But if in 8 to 12 months you have not completed your project, have not met your goals or your deadlines, and of course they're extenuating, they can do extensions if needed, but then they call back the building and then they sell it again, they put it out and, get it moving, So these are all things that we're looking at. And I think that there's a lot of potential for these different models. Some of them have more of a scalpel approach where they just pick a few properties that they think that may be more than the market would really deal. They have hazmat issues, foundation issues, serious structural issues that are a danger. And so what we have now is we have really a test bed to work with the 4 counties and the 2 cities where, for example, Herkimer County has a different approach where they're giving us some of what are called their toxic properties that they want to deal with. But in conjunction with that, they're giving us also some saleable properties that are in very good shape to kind of balance out that, because we're going to be spending $30,000 to $40,000 on demos, per property, but then we have some revenue generating properties. So figuring out that mix is a process, and I think Megan and I are going to try and come up with some options to look at and discuss. A couple of the other things that I wanted to mention is I think universally we're finding that code enforcement is one of the issues that whether we like it or not, that's going to be something the land bank has to address. And it's becoming more prevalent, and I think the difference is many of the land banks have looked at this as we can either do a merry-go-round approach where we just assume that this is going to be a continuing problem that's ongoing, or we can really get to the core of it, which is trying to help communities and apply for grants, working on resources to improve code enforcement so less properties are getting into a situation where they're hanging by that thread, or you get them and they need a roof and they're falling apart and they really just get run down. And one of the things that we've seen that I think is a really potential powerful point of the land bank is we've seen, looking over the foreclosure list, we see some of the names that, I'm sure Sean would recognize on the list of the repeat offenders, or as I call them, frequent flyers that we have, that own 20 or 30 properties, and they're delinquent, and they pay every time a day or two before the end of the auction. And they're also doing it in Herkimer County, and they're doing it in Otsego County. So they have 20 or 30 properties in each county. And so starting to share some of that information between treasurers, between counties, between the areas, so that we can say, well, maybe we can work with NICOM and the municipalities to start to put in some checks and balances so these people can't go and buy more, because maybe they're not delinquent in Montgomery County, but they're delinquent somewhere else and they've got a bunch of these properties. So, so those are just some of the things that we're thinking about. And we've also went around and surveyed about 100 different properties from the current, the rough list, the starting list, done assessments, done write-ups, and done some mapping. We're working with Amanda, who's been tremendous at the BDC. She's been a real great help. I've been talking with Ken. I met with both of them yesterday. And we've got a good communications line going. One of the ideas that Megan had suggested is maybe working with the BDC to do some incubator spaces for new businesses, like if they need to get a space and a community. And he was really keen on that idea and thought it was a great idea. So I think this is where the power of kind of communicating across the different departments and the different groups, and things that we can do, like we're looking at hiring a project manager that has the skills to go and assess buildings, to do basic hazmat, and do those assessments. If we already have somebody that's on staff that can do that, I think that that's something that the land bank would be really interested in sharing that resource with the county. And you say, you give us the list. We have surveyors that can do the data entry. We have people that can go and assess the properties, and then put all that information together and provide it to Sean or the county, so that when you're doing your auction, that legwork is saved for you, and we have those ratings on what shouldn't be sold because there's a leaking oil tank or whatever, those types of things. Any of that we can do, again, I think is something that we're looking to kind of check off those boxes, so we're not duplicating work and we're really helping the county. So
That's some good ideas there.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So any questions or anything, or does that sound good?
Well, actually, have you found any communities that have adequate code enforcement?
Yes, we have a great model that is a member of the land bank in the city of Rome. The city of Rome, their code enforcement officer, chief, Mark Domenico, has been tremendous. And they've been recognized. They were one of the early people to sign on along with Montgomery County. And Mark comes around, and when we do our zombie property workshop, which we've done in a lot of communities all over the region, including in Montgomery County, to kind of educate people about this. And they've been recognized by the state. They recently got, I believe, a $150,000 grant from LISP and the Attorney General's office to essentially use technology more to further enhance what they've been able to do with code enforcement. But they've gotten code enforcement to the point where they're actually just about breaking even, between fees, inspections, and different things, and not exorbitant, Well, what they're doing is they're charging for things that, you know, are requirements and doing the different, you know, for rentals and stuff like that. But they're doing it in a way that has both improved their code enforcement. They've moved to make these things more civil than criminal, you know, functions, and really have put together a good community based with both nonprofits and the city to really focus on remedying the code issues as opposed to, you know, slapping somebody on the wrist. And I would invite anyone, you know, I can, you know, share Mark's contact information, or, you know, would be happy to kind of, you know, coordinate some sort of a meeting or have him in to speak, because he is a really wonderful, passionate person, and he's been at it for about 15 years, starting following the Griffiths Air Force Base leaving. And so what really happened is Rome faced the foreclosure crisis 8 years or, you know, 10 years before the foreclosure crisis hit the rest of the, you know, country, and they got a handle on these issues. And so I think that we're really lucky to have them and Mayor Izzo in Rome as strong partners.
I'll just say a quick note on the code enforcement. At the last government efficiency meeting we had with a number of municipalities, we did get an earful about code enforcement, and especially from some of the smaller towns who are having trouble keeping someone. And so one of the things we're actively looking at as part of that is, could we do a consolidated code enforcement, and what would that look like? And there's a team of people that are looking at that right now. One of the biggest challenges is in the city of Rome, I would say it's a little more simple, because you have one city, one code to follow up on. Here you have multiple municipalities with different rules and different municipalities. So it's something that we're digging into, and maybe we can talk about it a little bit more, but it's more of an issue in the county for some municipalities than others. Some have had the same code enforcement officer for many years and are doing well. Others, like St. Johnsville, I think they've been through, I think they said 4 or 5 in the last 6 years, something along that line. So definitely something that's been identified and could potentially be part of our efficiency competition grant.
And if I could add on to what Matt said, Otsego has moved recently to a single county, you know, like a centralized county code enforcement. And while they've had some growing pains, they've been a lot happier with it, because a lot of the nepotism, and, you know, I often cite an example where we were doing a project in Fort Plain, probably about $25,000 to $30,000 worth of work. The code officer came out, he's like, oh, you know, and I had all the paperwork, I had the check, I dropped it off, it never got cashed. So I followed up, called them, finally got them on the phone. Oh, we know you, we know the GCs, don't worry about it, you know, we're fine. And I could have went and done, you know, anything I wanted. They could have, you know, we could have done it wrong, whatever. And then at the end of the day, we had a worker, one of the workers hurt his hand. Ambulance came. All of a sudden, I was getting calls from the code enforcement officer, the mayor. We need that paperwork back. And this is the last administration, not the new administration, with Mayor Quackenbush. But, you know, you just realize that, you know, all of a sudden there are some gaps in our, and this is why a lot of these places get that way. So what I would say is we're also looking at applying for funding for things like that, for doing planning, and would be willing to partner on grants, and, you know, have been meeting with the Department of State and the governor's office on ways that we can help, you know, with those resources. So I think that that's something that maybe we could partner on, you know, if the county ends up going in that direction. But I think it would definitely help because the patchwork of code enforcement right now is not working.
Yeah, just one more thing, because as I recall, like one of the problems is that when there's no demand for housing, and the housing values are really low in certain neighborhoods, it pays for some out-of-town or local landlords even to buy properties and not pay the taxes, because it's going to take probably 4 years before the foreclosure process even kicks in. And the guy's made his money back and then some. Mm-hmm. So this notion of sharing lists with other communities, with people who own multiple properties, and take advantage of that time lapse there, that's a good idea, because when it comes to selling the properties again, having that kind of review and knowing who those people are, I mean, that's the kind of thing where you can keep them off of the list. So that's good work you're doing, and I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah, and in that, to that point exactly, we have one problem property owner in Fort Plain where he's, it's basically demolition by neglect, and it turns out he had a building in Herkimer that ended up collapsing on a state highway.
Yeah.
So you start to see these patterns. If he's willing to let it happen in Herkimer, what are the chances of him fixing up in Fort Plain, or, so, yeah. Yeah, well, thank you.
Tolga, thank you very much.
Yeah.
As always, we appreciate your efforts and always look forward to your updates.
Yeah, thank you.
I think I'll adjourn the meeting as a whole and turn the meeting over to our esteemed chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee, Mike Cup.